Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen Fleming, and I am the Education and Training Coordinator for the Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative. We help caregivers for have any type of memory loss. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of memory loss that we have caregivers that are taking care of their loved ones with, but there's also Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, mixed dementia, and we help them all. We have a grant from the New York State Department of Health to provide services for these caregivers, and we are located out of the Center for Neurobehavioral Health at SUNY Plattsburgh, though we cover 6 counties, and they are Clinton, Franklin, Essex, Warren, Washington, and Hamilton counties. And the services that we provide usually start with a care consultation with one of the care navigators. There's one for each of the 6 counties, and they would have a meeting with you, talk about what your specific needs are, your situation, and then go from there. We also do education and training, so that's what we're here doing today. And right now, because of the COVID pandemic, we are offering all of our educational presentations online, and we do a variety of topics. Today, we're talking about family dynamics, there's meaningful activities, there's what is dementia, and the whole gamut of different presentations on a variety of topics. If you are interested, we offer those in group settings. So I'm doing a series on Mondays over the summer, but then I also can do them one-on-one with people. And that would be a Zoom meeting like we're doing today, but it would just be one-on-one, very personalized based on your specific situation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want to note that today we are in a webinar on Zoom, so I cannot see you, I cannot hear you. However, if you do have questions, there is a chat box and there is a Q&A feature. So feel free to type in those questions or comments, and I'm happy to answer them at the end or as I see them come through. Now, we also offer support groups, and normally there's one in each county. Right now, they're all of the same support groups are just happening virtually over the telephone. It's a conference call line, so you could call in if that's something you're interested in. We're doing virtual memory cafes. Last week, we had our very first one, and it was a musical performance by Mitch Willett, where people could tune in over Zoom, listen to him play, chat with each other in the chat box, or they could unmute themselves too and talk, and got to see a lot of familiar faces. It was a really good event, and we're going to be doing one of those each month from now on. And then we also offer respite. It's a very limited part of our program, but we will pay, if you are a caregiver for a loved one with any form of dementia, we'll actually pay for you to have someone come into your home or to take your loved one to what's it called? An adult day program. That's the word I was thinking of. Like we have Third Age here in Plattsburgh or Plattsburgh Nursing and Rehab. And right now those facilities, as far as I know, they are closed. However, once they open back up, we would be happy to pay or for you to have someone come into your house to give you just a little bit of a break. It's not meant to be full-time 24/7 caregiving. It's just so that you can get a break, go to your own doctor's appointments, go out to lunch, visit friends and family, whatever it is that you need to do, because we recognize that caregiving is really challenging and you can't do it 24/7 on your own. You do need a little bit of a break to take care of yourself so that you can provide quality care for your loved one. The last thing I wanted to talk about too was Project Lifesaver, which is a bracelet that your loved one would wear, because wandering is actually one of the biggest issues with dementia that we see. Is let's say you're a caregiver, even if you're a caregiver, you're the most diligent caregiver there is, you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to sleep at some point. So you might wake up in the middle of the night and your loved one's taken off, you don't know where they are. Well, this bracelet would actually, you would look around for them. If you don't find them, you'd call the sheriff's department for your county, and they have a wand that they wave and they use to locate your loved one. And that actually we offer free of charge. All of our services we offer free of charge, and it actually works, I think, in almost every county in the country. So let's say you're on vacation in Florida, you could call the sheriff's department down there. They would still be able to help you find your loved one. So really a great service, and it gives a lot of caregivers peace of mind. Now today I am going to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about family dynamics in caregiving. This is something I hear about at my support groups all of the time. Either caregivers feel like their family members are taking advantage of them being the primary caregiver, they're not getting the help that they need or they would like, or there's some people in the family feel like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal. Mom's dementia. Mom doesn't really have dementia. Her memory's fine. She's just getting older. Or, we really need to put mom into a nursing home. There's all these opinions that come out. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so let's start out just by talking about what is a caregiver. Well, there are two types of caregivers. There's an informal and a formal caregiver. So an informal caregiver is an unpaid person who helps another person with activities of daily living and or medical tasks. So it could be your spouse, your child, a sibling, a friend, a neighbor, etc. Now, a formal caregiver is a paid care person who provides care in a home setting or in a care setting, such as a day program, a residential facility, or a long-term care facility. So I do want to distinguish between those two different types of caregivers. And just some background knowledge for you to have. There are actually more than 16 million Americans who provide unpaid care for a person with dementia or Alzheimer's disease today. 18.5 billion hours of care are provided each year, and that would be valued at $234 billion. Now, these are unpaid caregivers. They're not getting paid, but if they were to get paid, that would be the value of their care. About 1 in 3 caregivers, about 34%, is age 65 or older. So a lot of people that they're getting to their retirement age, they weren't expecting to have to take care of their parent or their spouse, but now they're in this caregiver role, and they're not able to enjoy their retirement. They're not able to travel and spend time with their grandkids the way that they thought they would be able to. And approximately 2/3 of caregivers are women. More specifically, over 1/3 of dementia caregivers are daughters. And I hear a lot of people with siblings, they just assume that their sister is going to be the one to do all of the caregiving on their own. They don't expect the son to pitch in as much. So caring for a person with dementia is more challenging than caring for a patient with physical disabilities alone. People with dementia typically require more supervision and are less likely to express gratitude for help they receive and are more likely to be depressed. All of these factors have been linked to negative caregiver outcomes. And that is a quote taken from an article that was written in the American Journal of Nursing. And it was by Richard Schultz and Paula R. Sherwood in Physical and Mental Health Effects of Family Caregiving. I think that is so true from the people that I talk to who are caring for their loved ones with dementia. It's definitely a thankless job. Your loved one isn't going to recognize all that you do for them because their memory isn't what it used to be. They don't remember, they don't realize what's going on. And so it's really, really tough day in and day out to be providing this type of care for a loved one. So I'm gonna read a story, and this is a real life story. This has really happened. So it's about a woman named Ella Rees, and that is her real name. She lived at her aging parents' house in New Jersey for 20 years. She was taking care of them and managing their household. Both parents were ill, and her mother had frequent rages. She was very angry, had lots of outbursts. When Ella married and had a daughter of her own, she continued to live with her parents, moving out only when her mother's behavior became intolerable. After her mother was institutionalized, Ella spent several days a week taking care of her father. A few days before he died, after moving into her own home, he told her that she would inherit his property. But when Ella's two brothers, who had played no role in her parents' care, or their parents' care, found out, they challenged the deed in court, claiming that Ella had exercised undue influence over their father. A judge ruled for Ella, but on appeal, the brothers won, and the estate was divided 3 ways. To professionals in the field of aging, this is a familiar story of family conflict and of a parent waiting too long to make a decision about the disposition of their estate. But what may be surprising is that this case actually dates from 1904, over 100 years ago, not 2020. Times change, but human nature does not. This could be a story from nowadays too, and that's why we really do want people with dementia especially, but everybody, to have living wills in place, healthcare proxies, have attorneys look over their finances, and have a plan for what their wishes are in the future, especially before the dementia really sets in and they're unable to make those decisions on their own anymore. Because we really want people to be able to have what they wish done with their stuff after they pass. I think that's so important. So let's talk a little bit about how caregiving has changed over time. So back then, 100 years ago, there was a misconception that generations took care of their loved ones out of love and duty and respect without any fuss or angst. In reality, there were very limited choices for families due to the daily life in the pre-industrial age. Oftentimes, there was a promise of inheriting family's farm, business, or homestead, which was the incentive for providing care. It wasn't necessarily out of love. In fact, estate planning too soon was actually considered risky. Clergy and public figures encouraged older people not to give their children financial control, as they could potentially lose their only form of support. So the thought being, oh, if we give our children the control of our finances, then they have no need to care for us anymore, so we're not going to do that. So in the past, families took care of their own out of the promise of inheritance of a home, estate, or business. And a lot of times, women did not work out of their homes. There were no federal or state programs such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or the Older Americans Act. So they didn't get a lot of help from the government either. Nowadays, people tend to marry later and are having smaller families. Hence, there are no caregivers, or very few caregivers within a family for aging parents. Many families are varied and complex. Blended families, single family house or single parent households, and grandparents raising their grandkids are all very common situations nowadays. And today, nearly 6 in 10 women are employed outside of the home. So they're having to, work a full-time job and to be able to provide for their own family and their own kids, and then also do the caregiving on nights when they get home from work. Maybe they're still taking care of their children. There's definitely a sandwich, what's called the sandwich generation, people who are taking care of both their parents who are aging and their young children. And it's hard to balance both of those things. And there have also been many healthcare advances since the 1950s. So people are living longer and they're needing more care over time. So family caregiving, there's no doubt about it, it is very complicated. So role reversals are one of the reasons why it's so complicated. It can be very challenging for caregivers because Alzheimer's disease especially changes the relationship of those involved. An adult child may be taking care of a parent, or a spouse may be taking care of their partner, and they are now having to take on new responsibilities. These role reversals may include physical responsibilities and can also be very emotionally difficult for the caregivers. There are also new priorities. Caregiving for someone with Alzheimer's disease is a very demanding task and often takes top priority. When this happens, other things and people go to the wayside. This could include your children, your spouses, your social life, your own personal health. Many caregivers will even have to give up their full-time job and will experience a loss of income, which is another undue hardship for them. There are also effects on children. Young children and teenagers might have a difficult time understanding what is happening with the person with Alzheimer's disease. They may have to deal with their parents' absence or lack of attention in addition to coping with these changes and that they see in the person who has dementia, and uncertain futures. Alzheimer's disease changes the plans for the person with the diagnosis and for the caregiver. Plans for retirement may have to change. Considerations for long-term care and financial planning will also have to be decided on. So it really is a complicated issue. And family members will disagree about how to best care for the person with Alzheimer's disease. Each person involved in the care will have their own opinions about how the care should be provided and where it should be provided. Every decision that the primary caregiver may make could be met with opposition from another family member, which is really frustrating. So how to cope as a family? Well, first thing, you have to adjust to the new normal. You have to recognize that a person with memory loss is going to experience this disease and their diagnosis, and really understanding what that means. I think a lot of times there's some misconceptions where some of the behaviors are kind of confusing. You may think your loved one's doing it on purpose. They're not. It's the disease. Their memory, their language, their behaviors, all of those things may change. And caregiving doesn't ask anyone's permission. It just happens. During this time, it's important to help one another cope with the reality of this diagnosis and how it will affect your relationships. Take a team approach. In most families, there's one person who assumes the role as the primary caregiver. This person might be what's called a gatekeeper, or the main contact for day-to-day care and medical appointments. It's unfair for families to expect this person to do all of the caregiving alone. It's been found that a team approach is the most effective approach to memory care, and it benefits everyone involved. Evaluate the strengths and skills and availability of all family members to decide how tasks should be divided. And communicate often. Try your best to make sure that everyone is informed about the person you're caring for. When disagreements arise, set some time to discuss them as soon as possible so that the issues do not fester. Try creating a care log, which provides details of care, meals, temperament, medications, etc. A lot of times people will choose to use a notebook for this, but there also are some ways to do it on the computer and online applications such as CareZone, CaringBridge, or Lots of Helping Hands. There are ways to stay connected and choose the method that works best for you. I think especially an online approach works well if there are long distance caregivers involved, people who still want to be involved but maybe live in another town, another state, across the states, you know, in California. So really try to keep everyone engaged and up to date as best you can. Avoid placing the blame. When things get difficult, it's human nature to find something or someone to blame. It's common in caregiving situations for siblings to blame each other, especially when there are some who appear to be less involved in the care, or there are long distance caregivers. Placing blame will always do more harm than good. You will have more success with getting help if you approach them in a non-confrontational, non-aggressive manner. And get support. All families will experience difficulties and uncertainties when taking care of someone with Alzheimer's disease. Sometimes families experience problems or disagreements that cannot be resolved on their own. You may need to talk to a third party to help your family come to a solution, and there's no shame in that. People or agencies that might be able to help you include a family counselor, pastor, a trusted family friend, or a care navigator from our program. And it can be very beneficial to get an outside perspective and support to help your family come up with an agreement. Even if your family is doing a good job at the caregiving, you're bound to experience emotional and logistical struggles. Support groups are a great way to express your emotions and cope with the difficult trials your family is experiencing. And like I said in my introduction, we do offer support groups. Right now they're happening over the telephone. It's very easy. You dial in a number. And one of the nice things is you don't have to drive. So if you're living in a more rural location, we might not have a support group close to you that normally meets in person, but it's very easy for you to call in, so that's an option. The Alzheimer's Association also offers support groups, so maybe if the days and times that we offer ours don't work for you, then you could look into the Alzheimer's Association as well. And I would be happy, if any of you are interested in attending a support group, I'd be happy to get you the contact information for phoning in. Just let me know. Excuse me. Oh, it's a hot day today. All right, so working together as part of a team. In order to work as a team, you need to actually be a team. Here are a couple steps to help you work together. Clarify the purpose. So set a time to discuss the roles and expectations for each person. Keep in mind that the goal is to collaborate together in order to create an environment that will foster the best possible quality of life for your loved one. Be sure to match the right person to appropriate tasks. For example, it might not be successful to match someone who gets really queasy and grossed out by bodily fluids and expect them to help change bandages, help with the toileting, changing adult undergarments, anything like that. Probably not going to be the best fit, but maybe they could mow the lawn once a week or cook a meal, bring Sunday dinner over to you so you don't have to cook it. There's many other things that they're able to do. Truly get to know the person that you're caring for. It's important to learn their likes and their dislikes. What are their preferences regarding bathing? Do they like to take a shower or a bath? Do they do it early in the morning or right before bed? Learn what they like to eat, what their favorite foods are, what their time of day that they like to eat. You know, do they drink their coffee at 6 a.m. but then wait until 10 to have their eggs and toast, or do they get up and eat right away? It's really, really important to know what their routines were before the Alzheimer's disease set in so that you can help them achieve those same routines when you're caregiving. You'll be met with a lot less resistance. And share the information with each other. If you find a new activity that they really enjoy doing, or you find out, oh, actually they prefer to take a bath at night than a shower in the morning, share that with the other people that are doing the caregiving too, so that everybody is on the same page and can you implement the same strategies. Communication is key. Try to make a regular time for the care team to speak to one another. Consider creating a communication log or a journal, which can help everyone stay on the same page, and have members of the care team write a brief summary on how the day went, including any changes in care, temperament, sickness, medication, information about their diet and sleep patterns. This will help everybody on the care team customize their plans for a better outcome in the future. And be open and flexible. Please remember that the person with dementia may be unable to adapt to changes like the rest of the family or staff can. Be willing to be flexible and try new things to give your loved one the best quality care. Remain open-minded and think outside the box when trying to coordinate care for your loved one. I think this is so important. Many people think the person with Alzheimer's disease is just being stubborn, or they're doing it on purpose, but there's usually a reason for their behavior, and think about how you're approaching the situation. So let's say it's time to give your loved one a bath. If you go up to them and say, oh, PU, you stink, time to go take a shower, of course they're gonna say, no way, I showered this morning. I don't have to go with you. I don't want to take a shower. I already did it. But if you say, oh, we have company coming over for dinner, why don't you get you cleaned up and dressed in a nice outfit for company? Well, then they might be a little more likely to go take a shower with you. So think about how you're approaching and what their routines were, and that will really help you provide better care and help eliminate some of those frustrations and battles that people end up getting in with the person with dementia. So how to win more support from your siblings. So try to accept your siblings and your parents as they are, not how you wish they were. Families are complicated and never perfect. All families have issues and it's tough, but there should be no shoulds when it comes to how people should feel. What I mean by this is that just because a person doesn't feel the same way you do, it doesn't make them a bad person or a bad child. Once we're able to accept this, it's likely we'll get more support from the absent family members, or at least a little less conflict. Do not oversimplify. It's easy to assume that you're completely in the right and your siblings are all wrong, or they're lazy, they're irresponsible, they're uncaring, etc. However, each person has a different relationship with your parent, and therefore each person's outlook is bound to be different. Ask yourself if you really want the help from your siblings. First of all, deep down, you might not want help. And it might sound strange, but many caregivers say they want help, but actually are discouraging help. They might ask for help, but then complain about how their loved one does something. Or they might wish that someone offered to help, but then say, no, I can do it on my own, without really, and then complain, but they never get any help and they have to do everything on their own. So think about specific tasks that you would like help with. For instance, you could assign someone regular tasks to be done regularly, such as picking up a prescription or doing some landscaping. Would you like a break? Maybe Thursday afternoons, you'd like to be able to go and do your grocery shopping and run some errands. And so you'd like someone else to come stay with your loved one on Thursday afternoons or for a weekend so you can go away and visit your kids in another town. Or maybe you feel like everything's under control, but you wish they would help out financially a little more. Maybe you're having extra medical expenses and grocery bills. You need more equipment than you were expecting. And so you wish they would contribute financially. Many caregivers feel lonely, isolated, and unappreciated. If you'd like your siblings to check in on you more often, then ask them to call you once a week. You can even tell them that you need a little bit more encouragement, as caregiving is a hard job, and they'll be more likely to check in on you if you're not criticizing them for all that they're not doing. So how to ask for help? Well, start by saying you need help with a specific task. So could you pick up mom's prescriptions? Could you stay with mom so I can go to church on Wednesday nights? Don't fall into the common trap. This is what I was saying before. Don't fall into the common trap that you shouldn't have to ask for help. They should offer. Many times siblings will just assume that you have everything covered and they don't recognize the added responsibilities and the burden that you may be experiencing as the primary caregiver. Many people are also attuned to what's happening in their own lives and focused on that. They might not recognize that you need help unless you say something. Also, if you're not able to tell them exactly how to help, you might be sending them mixed signals. Many caregivers may hint or complain. They might even post an article about the hardships of caregiving on their Facebook page. These strategies don't work well. In order to help you get the help that you need, you have to be specific and direct. Be realistic in your request too. Consider who and what you're asking. Consider the relationship that your sibling has with the loved one, and ask if the person really can give. For example, if your sister and mother can't spend more than 10 minutes together without screaming at each other, then don't ask her to spend time. Instead, ask for assistance with paperwork, groceries, bookkeeping, anything like that. So how to win some more support from your siblings? Avoid making your siblings feel guilty. Yes, really, guilt makes people feel uncomfortable and defensive. That may make them feel angry and minimized or criticize what you're doing, which will hurt you and make it harder. And then you'll make them feel more guilty, and it's a vicious cycle. Instead, you might want to get help from an outside professional. Even the healthiest families can benefit from an objective professional During family meetings, they can help you stay focused on the topic and prevent you from engaging in old arguments. Consider getting the help from a family therapist, a social worker, a geriatric care manager, or physicians or clergy. Whether or not you've been given your parents' legal powers over finances or health, you need to remember that it was your parents' decision in the first place, and you are just following their wishes. If you've been chosen to be power of attorney, keep a detailed record and keep your siblings in the loop on how your parents' money is being spent. It may be a lot of work, but record keeping is required by law, and being open will eliminate distrust and speculation. If you feel wronged by the way your parents have divided their money and property, it's natural to be upset. You may feel like you deserve more because you've done more of the caregiving for your parents. Do your best to speak with your parents about how you feel while they're still alive and able to make changes. So I recommended having family meetings, and these are some tips for how to get the most out of one. You want to set a goal. Be realistic and attainable, and the goal should outline key objectives for quality care. You all should be in agreement that you want to provide the best care for your loved one as possible, and you're going to have to figure out a way to do that as a team. You may want to include the person with dementia or memory loss and decide who else should be part of the caregiving team. Think about friends, family members, neighbors, people from church that could all be included. Schedule a video or phone conference with care team members that are long distance if they can't be there in person for the meeting. Set a start time and an end time and follow a specific agenda. So keep the meetings on track. Stick to one or two topics that are the most important, and clearly define, sorry, there's a typo there, but clearly define family member responsibilities. Create a calendar that includes medical appointments and activities that care team members should be responsible for in each of their commitments. And consider getting help from a social worker or a clergy member or any other third person who will help ensure that everyone's getting their voice heard. Not all issues regarding caregiving and decision making will be solved at your meeting. So sometimes it's important to accept a solution that's in the ballpark. You want to be prepared, bring doctor's notes, legal documents, etc., assign roles, leave opinions at the door, and create a culture of respect and acceptance. If someone gets angry or stressed, take a break, process your emotions, you can come back to it. Acknowledge strengths and try not to be judgmental of people's limitations. And collaboration and compromise are key. Be mindful that there is no right way of being a caregiver. That is so important. Everybody is doing the best they can and what they think is right. No one is a mind reader, so you need to say what you're thinking at these meetings. Try to match the tasks up to the helpers as best you can. Keep everyone in the loop and up to date on information related to medical conditions, medications, anything that may have changed. Like I said before, take a break. If it turns into a shouting match, want to avoid that. If you need someone to vent to, do it to someone outside of the family. It will cause a lot of drama if you're all gossiping and complaining about each other. Instead, maybe go to a support group, see an individual therapist, talk to a friend who's not involved and can be kind of an impartial person to talk to, and pick your battles. Not everything is worth having a huge disagreement over. When there does come a point where you will need additional assistance, 24/7 care can be very overwhelming for any one individual or family caregiver team. So there are a few different ways you can get additional care in the home or outside the home. So there's home care. You could have a home health aide or a respite provider come into your house to provide care. You could also hire someone to come do some cleaning, landscaping, odd jobs around the house, things like that. There's also adult day programs. I know in Plattsburgh, where I'm based, there's Third Age in Plattsburgh Nursing and Rehab Center, but there's also other day programs in other counties, other areas, and those are a good resource. I do believe, as far as I know, that most of them are closed for right now. There's facility-based respite. Some people aren't aware, but you could actually, a lot of nursing homes will offer a 2-week short stay respite. So you could get a little bit of a break, go on vacation, and relax, and then pick up your loved one and go back home with them. Could also look to friends and family members to help more with the caregiving duties. I mentioned these in my introduction, but our program, the Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative, we offer a lot of services to help family caregivers. So the first step is usually a care consultation with one of the care navigators, and they can either be done one-on-one or with a family. The care navigator for your county will sit down with you, talk about your specific situation, and help you with that. There's also support groups and memory cafes. The memory cafes are social events for both person with dementia and their loved one with their caregiver. So those are really fun events, and it helps you get to know other people, get out of the house when they're in person. Right now they're happening online, but they're still a good way to spend an afternoon, something different to do. We offer educational presentations like today. They're all happening on Zoom virtually. We also do one-on-one presentations. So I'm happy to meet with you or with your family. I've done family education presentations as well to talk about the specifics of your situation. You can pick a topic that you want to learn more about that's really relevant to your situation. There's Project Lifesaver, which again is that wandering bracelet that tracks your loved one so that they don't get lost, or if they do get lost, you can find them quickly. And respite. So we will pay for a limited number of hours for you to get a little bit of a break and can help ease some of that burden. All right. So this is a video that I'm going to be showing about one family's experience with caregiving. It's 3 daughters and how they work together to provide care for their mother. I think it's really relevant to this presentation.
When my mom first found out she was sick and she told us, she acted like it was no big deal and that she didn't need us to take her to a doctor's appointment or schedule for her, or, you know, she could handle it. She'd take care of it in her own way, in her own time. And we sort of struggled with that because we knew how serious it was and we wanted to be involved. We wanted to help take care of her. And, you know, one of the big battles we had early on was letting her let us be involved. And she'd say, I can take myself to radiation. I can drive myself. You don't need to drive me. And we finally came up with an answer that we kept telling her, you know what, Mom? You spent all those years taking care of us. Let us give back a little bit. The stress of my mom's illness was, I would say, different for every person in our family. And daily, it just, maybe some person had a little bit more stress. I think it was stressful on my mom. I think she didn't want us to worry about her, so she tried to be really strong and I'm fine, don't worry, you know, all those things, and tried to have a positive outlook on it. So just slowly, little things started to change, and it just seemed like overnight it went from needing a little help to needing a lot of help. You know, in all honesty, my home life suffered. My husband was terribly neglected, although really that's just terribly unfortunate for him. I don't feel bad about it in the least, and I used to say all the time, I'm never going to get another chance to take care of my mother. This is it. This is the last thing I can do for her. And so I never once felt bad leaving my house messy to go clean hers. You know, I was blessed because I had the opportunity to live next door to my mom. I bought the house next door to where I grew up, and so it was very comforting to me. But that also put me in a role of the family caregiver because I was next door. And it was challenging because I felt like it was my responsibility 24/7. to take care of her. My sisters did so much too. I mean, one sister took care of finances, one took care of doctor's appointments, but I just felt like I always had to watch her in the house just to make sure nothing was wrong. We just sort of all found our own way to help with that stuff, but we all did it differently because we're very different personalities. And, you know, some things worked, some things didn't. And if we found that one sibling had a way of getting that, whatever we needed done, we would let them do it. You have to have open communication. You have to know that your way isn't necessarily the right way, that there is no right way to get through this. It's just a way through it. And not everything you deal with is pretty or easy or nice. It's complicated, it's scary, it's overwhelming. Someone's stress or emotion is tied to, you know, your parent is sick and eventually will pass away. And it is really hard, and it's different for every person in your family, and really try to take that into consideration. And if they say something or do something that maybe is out of character, it's, you know, they're hurting, they're, you know, and everybody deals with grief differently. Sometimes it's okay not to be in charge. You know, there's a lot, we have a very dynamic personalities in our family, and we're all hard workers. And so it's hard to let somebody else be in charge of you, especially when you're not used to that. But in this situation, you sort of have to let go of the things that you can't control and contribute where you can contribute. Sharing the care between siblings was incredible, because you really, I think it brought the siblings closer together. We're working on the same goal. Always, you know, being there for my mom. You know, it's about being part of the process, about being there for the people that love you and you love, and not missing. I mean, it's a part of your history, it's a part of your story. It becomes a part of who you are as you age. And so to not miss that by being the privilege of being around for that, you get the benefit of sharing the end of someone's life, which is a gift. And you know, you don't want to miss out on the gifts that you're given in life. Know that you'll deal with things that aren't always pleasant or happy. There's a lot of sadness. Grieve along the way. You need to grieve through this because it's hard and it's complicated. But the one thing in life is everyone dies at some point, and you need each other. You need each other to get through it. I think the most rewarding thing about being a family caregiver is the opportunity to just spend those last moments with the person you love and tell them how you feel. And it was awesome. I wouldn't change one thing.
Well, I just think that's a really beautiful story of how three sisters work together to care for their mom as at the end of her life, as she needed more care. And you could tell that they really had a lot of love for their mother and for each other. And they touched on the emotions. I think that's huge. There's grief, there's sorrow, you're mourning the loss of your loved one as you're caring for them, well, even though they're still alive, which seems a little silly if they're still alive, but you're having a change in your relationship and you're still grieving that. And they all work together wonderfully. I'm sure it wasn't always easy, but they had specific roles. They said one was doing day-to-day care, one was doing finances, one was focused on medical appointments. And I think they're a great example of how to provide care in a team approach. I just want to leave with this quote. There are 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. And that's very true. Caregiving touches on everyone's life at some point in their lives, whether they are the caregiver or the care receiver. It will affect them, and it will affect every family. With that, I do want to let you know about one other program. On July 28th, we are having a caregiver conference featuring a keynote presentation by Jim Comer. It's going to be at 2 p.m. and he's going to be talking on how to survive caregiving with sanity and a sense of humor, which I think is so important. Everyone needs to laugh every once in a while. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If anybody has any questions they would like me to answer, you can either type them into the Q&A feature or into the chat box, and I'm happy to answer them or any questions that you might have. I'll wait a minute to see if anyone has anything they'd like to say. I also want to say that one thing that this is one thing that I see a lot come up in my support group. So people either talking about how one of their sisters is super opinionated, but she's never around to provide the care. Or they don't think that mom really needs to go into a nursing home, but I can't do this anymore, and they're not willing to help provide the care. And I think there's a lot of families where not everyone's on the same page. Not everyone is seeing the same things day in and day out. If they're more removed from providing the care, then they might not be aware of the situation. So, and they're not willing necessarily to help. So it can be really frustrating to get the person on the same page with you. So maybe bringing them to a meeting with a care navigator or to an educational presentation or to the caregiver conference, then any of those things to try to help them understand what's going on and get on the same page could help. Let's see, I do have one question coming in now, and it looks like it's about coronavirus and the team approach and how to adapt for COVID. I know in our support groups, that's something else that we've been talking a lot about. People used to have respite providers or their families coming into their house to provide respite or to help with the caregiving, and they stopped doing that because they were worried about the risk of infection, which I totally understand. And I also understand people who have made the tough decision to continue having someone come into their house because they can't do the caregiving on their own. You know, we have no judgment for whatever your situation is, and you understand you have to make that difficult decision. And maybe if you're feeling burnt out and would like some help, maybe you need to reconsider the plan that you had. Maybe you could pick one person that you know is being really safe, not going out into public a lot, they're wearing a mask, they're washing their hands, all of those CDC guidelines, and maybe you could have them come in 1 day a week. So you're still not having everyone in the neighborhood come over to help provide care, but maybe you find one person that you're comfortable with. Or maybe you do your family meetings on Zoom or on FaceTime or Skype, in some way of still having that family meeting and staying connected, even though you're farther apart and you're not having the daily contact. Or even just on the telephone, call people and let them know how you're doing and what's going on. And check in with your loved ones. If you are not the primary caregiver, check in with them, give them a phone call, see how they're doing and what they need. You know, maybe you could ask for help with the grocery shopping, and then you bring everything in and sanitize it. Or maybe you need help with landscaping or with finances. Think outside the box and think of other ways that your loved ones can help. So if there are no more questions, I do want to let you know that normally when I do these presentations in person, they come with a book that's on the topic. So I have a book that relates to family dynamics and caregiving. And I would be happy to either drop those off if you live in the Clinton County area or mail them to you if that is something you're interested in. So you can just let me know, give me a call. My number is 518-564-2049. Again, that's 518-564-2049. And I'm doing these presentations every other week over the summer on Monday. So next week I'm going to be talking about creating a strong care team, and I think that really ties in nicely to this family dynamics. There's going to be a little bit of overlap, but there's also some new information. It's really good. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know, and I'd be happy to send you the link to register. Like I said, I'd be happy to get you this book. I hope everyone takes care, has a great afternoon, and gets to enjoy this beautiful sunny day. If there are no other questions, if you think of something later, give me a call. Happy to help. We're here to help you out. So thank you very much for attending this presentation, and I hope that I see you again at one of our future events. Take care. Bye.